Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. And on this glorious March day, seriously, one of the warmest days I've ever known in March, I'm stuck in a studio rather than out enjoying the sun. So I'm going to make this as quick as I can so I can go out, sit in my garden, crack open a cold one, and enjoy the day. You may hear some background noise as well. That's my neighbour has decided that it's far too good a day to sit in the house, so he's going to go out and do some work in the garden. Slightly annoying, but only because I want to, record. That's how it goes. You have to tolerate your neighbours. But it's a good day. And my hero, and I hope yours, J.K. Rowling, has shown what a massive pair of balls she has. Because, again, really, because she's now a very public figure, very publicly slamming Putin. And there's a big headline. It's a headline article. It's the main story here. So I'm going to go straight in without further ado, just to spread the news, spread the good word, and to further push the pro Rowling agenda, because I do love JK. I think she's marvellous. So let's get down to it. I'll put myself in the corner and we'll have a look. Here we are. So as you see, Mail Online, great headline. J.K. Rowling claps back at Putin. Author said, critiques of cancel culture aren't best made by those slaughtering civilians. After Despot said Russia being cancelled by the West was just like the Harry Potter author being targeted over gender rights. No, not exactly. J.K. Rowling expressed a deep, heartfelt conviction based on her experience as a woman who is being cancelled by a tiny minority of very loud, gobshite men in frocks. Putin, on the other hand, is slaughtering innocent people, bombing maternity wards, and telling his troops to open fire with machine guns on civilians who have got their hands up and are surrendering. Rowling has done nothing wrong. Rowling has killed nobody. Rowling isn't a slaughterer of the innocent. So I don't think Putin's claim has any merit. Anyway, we'll go through. J.K. Rowling has rubbished Putin's deranged rant, and he is completely deranged. He is as mad as a fucking bicycle, this murdering psychopath. But anyway, his deranged rants that Russia is being cancelled by the West over its illegal war in Ukraine. No, it's not being cancelled in the West because Putin has a stand against anything minor or political. He has caused this by his actions. Anyway, so the Harry Potter author took the Kremlin warmonger to task for slaughtering civilians for the crime of resistance. The increasingly despotic ruler, and psychotic and delusional, moaned about Russia's increasing global isolation. What the hell does he expect? Following the invasion last month during a speech to culture ministers. Well, he's a prick, isn't he? Actually, he's a tiny, tiny prick. Zero balls. And he has to hide behind big tables because he's scared of everything. I think he's mentally gone. I think this is the trouble. He's deranged. And the trouble is he surrounds himself by other people who are just as deranged. And then he wonders, after he starts slaughtering children, why nobody loves him. What a cock. Anyway, claiming that Hollywood has written the Red Army's World War II achievements out of history, I believe Russia could make its own films. Putin then accused the West of anti-Russian discrimination. Well, okay, we'll come back to this. Before likening himself to the British author and her recent trouble over gender rights. What? He likens himself to her? He's a redhead Scottish bint. If he had any hair, bald bastard. Rowling has been accused of transphobia after saying that only women experience menstruation, which I'm afraid is biologically true, because if you don't have a womb, you ain't going to menstruate. And if you're a man who cuts off his balls and cock, throws on a pretty frock, calls himself Marjorie, doesn't matter, you're still not going to menstruate. you're a man in a frock and you're calling yourself Marjorie. But we'll move on. Putin spat out, they, the West, cancelled J.K. Rowling, the children's author. Her books are published all over the world, all because she didn't satisfy the demands of gender rights. They are trying to cancel our country. I'm talking the progressive discrimination of everything to do with Russia. Yes, because Russia is being led by a complete fuckwit and psychopath who's murdering children. And if you think taking a political stand against somebody's gender dysphoria and their claim that they are now a woman when they're biologically not is the same as launching phosphor grenades into a ward of babies, then you need to seriously have a bullet put in the back of your head for the betterment of the world. And I think it's increasingly likely that someone in Russia, someone close to that murdering wanker, is going to pick up, hopefully, an AK-47. That would be ironic, wouldn't it? And discharge his duty for the sake of humanity. Anyway, responding to the childish Russian despot, he's stamping his little feet, isn't he? Because he is only about 5'8". He's a tiny little man. It's what I said in an earlier video about letting short men have power. Stalin was the same. He was a little feckin' dwarf. He was about 5'6". Rowling shared a BBC article about jailed Putin critic Alexei Navalny and wrote, critiques of Western cancel culture are possibly not best made by those currently slaughtering civilians for the crime of resistance or who jail and poison their critics. She added the hashtag I stand with Ukraine. Putin even tried to link modern-day cancel culture to Nazi book burnings of the 1930s, which, to be honest, he does have a point. Claiming such things would never happen in Russia, even as his regime imposes a free speech lockdown. Are you kidding me? Russia burnt as many books as the Nazis did. Jesus Christ, man. Look at the history of your own country, you stupid little oik. The Russian despot has also spoken of cleansing everyone from Russian society who is too Western or harbours Western thoughts. Yeah, we understand how cleansing works in Russia. Stalin cleansed maybe 50, possibly 70 million people. We know that the Russians do like their cleansing, don't they? Because they ultimately they cleansed more than the Germans did in World War II, but not as many as the Chinese. And the Chinese, of course, are still doing it. But there we go. Britain, the US and the EU have hammered Russia with sanctions in the wake of Putin's attack on Ukraine, which has crashed the ruble, including cutting it off from banking systems and trade, while Western brands withdraw, leaving its economy in tatters. But Putin took particular ire with the decision of some Western institutions to remove works by Russian artists, authors and composers in response to the war. Yeah, well, I think taking the Russian music away is a bit much. Tchaikovsky's been dead for over 100 years. You come down, just a picture of the prick. The prick's big tank. The prick's big pricks. I mean, he's such a sad little tosser, isn't he? But it is the same thing. Cancel culture is not the same thing. And she is right. I love her to bits. She's right. She's standing up to him. She's standing up to him more than Boris has stood up for him, for God's sake. I mean, Jesus. J.K. Rowling for the next Prime Minister. Anyway, we'll leave this here. I'll come up. I did want it to be quick, and I've kind of gone off on one. But I'll come up, round off the video, and we'll leave it there. So, right, done with this, and I'll come up. I would advise anyone, I think, to watch the film The Death of Stalin. It's a perfect example of how shit the Russian system is. Stalin was a monster. He was absolute... I mean, he was a dick. He was a tiny little prick of a man. And he was so paranoid, and he killed millions. And he would kill you if you just sort of looked at him because he didn't like the way you looked at you. He'd just kill you for it. It was that tiny little nothing of a man who'd made it big. And when little nothings of men make it big, it's dangerous. And then you had Malenkov and all that crew around him. They were all wankers. And then you had Nikita Khrushchev. another wanker. And all of them, wankers, wankers, wankers all. The only one they had that wasn't probably a complete wanker was Gorbachev, who at least understood that the Soviet Union was going to lose. He was the first one who actually understood that it was going to fail. And he only understood that after Chernobyl, because he knew that Chernobyl meant the Soviet Union was going to fail. So he acted in did something good for Russia for once. Then you had a drunk Boris Yeltsin, and ever since then you've had Putin, really, this psychopath who has destroyed Russia. Think of all these Russian billionaires with their hundreds of billions of this and hundreds of billions of that, and think about what Russia would be if all that money that they stole from the Russian people had been employed in using the infrastructure, building roads and rail links and building up their technology, things like that. But no, they just wanted to steal it so they could sit on their multi-million-pound yachts like pricks. And they're all pricks. And I think the world needs to not only close Russia down now. We just basically need to close Russia down, starve it out. They do no more trade. They get nothing. Nothing. You give Russia nothing for what they've done, because what they're doing now is war crimes. When you're bombing, and knowing before you're doing it, you're bombing a maternity ward, that's a war crime. When you're raping women, then hanging them, that's a war crime. Every Russian soldier needs to be treated as a war criminal, taken to The Hague, prosecuted, and hanged as a war criminal. It was good enough in 1945. It's got to be good enough in 2022. We give them the same treatment. Every single one. But start with Putin. Anyway, if you like what you hear and see on the channel, please hit the subscription button if you haven't already. Ring the notification bell for future output. Leave a like and leave a comment. And until next time, stay safe, stay well, and goodbye.